Right now at 11, breaking news once again in Minneapolis, where an immigration mission ends in a shooting.
This is not the path that we should be on right now in America.
Plus, Portland City Council finally picks a new leader after 13 rounds of votes.
This is just profoundly unserious at this point.
Why the new president isn't happy about the job. Then the fog socks in the valley. So how much longer will it stick around? And later, meet the evasive emu that ended up in handcuffs. But first to that breaking news in Minneapolis, and another person shot by federal agents during an immigration mission. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Mulco. Tonight, federal authorities say that person was hit in the leg and survived. Homeland Security says this all began when federal officers stopped a person from Venezuela who was in the U.S. illegally, they say. They say the person drove off and crashed into a parked car in a residential area before they got out and made a run for it. When officers caught up with them, DHS says 2 other people came out of an apartment and all 3 started attacking the officer, including with a shovel and a broom handle. That's when federal officials say the officer fired the shot in self-defense. The man hit is now in the hospital, and the 2 others who allegedly attacked the officer are in custody. And while the mayor of Minneapolis tonight acknowledged there are still a lot of unknowns here, he also said the immigration crackdown in his city is not sustainable.
ICE can leave, and this massive deployment can come to an end. We have filed litigation to hopefully make it so, and at the same time, I'm deeply concerned that we don't have that kind of time. This is already the 2nd shooting that we've had in a week. People are scared. The atmosphere is tense.
Tonight's shooting occurred some 4 miles north of where an ICE agent shot and killed Renee Good just 1 week ago, and it further inflamed ongoing protests. Officers in gas masks and helmets firing tear gas and pepper balls into a crowd as protesters allegedly threw fireworks at officers. Well, in an update tonight here in the Northwest, the suspect shot by a Border Patrol agent in Southeast Portland last Thursday pleaded not guilty in federal court to charges that include aggravated assault of a federal officer. Court records say Luis Nino Moncada appeared anxious during what Homeland Security says was a targeted traffic stop. They say he repeatedly rammed an unoccupied Border Patrol vehicle, and an agent fired 2 shots as Nino Moncada and his passenger drove off. Federal prosecutors say both were in the U.S. illegally and have alleged ties to a Venezuelan gang. The passenger is being held in the ICE processing center in Tacoma with an appearance scheduled for Friday. In a weather impact alert tonight, the fog barely let up in some spots across our area today and could cause some issues heading into tomorrow. Chief Meteorologist Matt Spinos keeping an eye on things. Matt, how bad is it right now?
Hey, David, it's actually lifted quite a bit over the last few hours. See, at Salem right now, we can see the Capitol. That was not the case a couple of hours ago. 39 degrees, humidity still 100%. So yes, there's still fog in the valley, but the visibilities have improved a bit at this hour. In fact, we look at those, see it's 4 miles in Aurora. Portland Airport, no problem. Hillsborough, though, has thick fog. 3/4 of a mile visibility down in McMinnville. So it's really variable right now around the valley, but even Corvallis and Salem are seeing decent visibility over a mile in those locations. Thicker fog down in Eugene. In Portland, as I mentioned, not only did the fog lift, you could actually see stars out for a while tonight as the clouds broke up, but humidity is still at 100%. We're going to see this low cloud deck either reform or form into fog into the early morning hours. So expect fog in the morning, but not all day, because the east wind will come to the rescue. See the colors kind of pick up and spread out across the Portland area. That's the east wind. That will mix the fog. We'll get gusts in the gorge of 30 or 40 miles an hour, but in Portland more like 20, 25 miles an hour. So tomorrow night, then they ramp up even more. So again, the fog hours are numbered finally. It will be foggy overnight, but then that east wind kicks in, and that means it's going to warm up too. And speaking of warming, wait to see how warm it got in the Cascade foothills today. Not just 60s, even higher than that, David.
Wow, surprising. Thanks, Matt. New tonight, reaction is coming in after the Trump administration says it plans to end what is called temporary protected status for Somalis and ordered them to leave the country in just over 2 months. Alma McCarty talked with some Somali Americans tonight in the Portland metro. So Alma, what are you hearing?
Yeah, David, the last time that I checked in with them was about a month ago, prior to the influx of federal agents into the Twin Cities, which have a substantial Somali community. At that time, there was already anxiety and already fear. And since then, those feelings here have only intensified.
President Trump's words disparaging the Somali community in December, then the arrest and detention of dozens of refugees in Minneapolis a month later.
So it's no longer just a threat. Now it's an actual ongoing situation or tragedy, if you will.
And the impact, Ismail Warsami tells us, is widespread, especially online.
People have been told, go back to your country, you're not legal in this country, you're not welcome, the day of reckoning is coming.
Zamzam Abdallah explains Oregon's Somali community continues to face difficulties between the Fed's rhetoric and actions and rampant misinformation, tied in part to allegations of fraud in Minnesota.
This administration is trying to tear us apart. They're sending a lot of families back home, and a lot of moms are afraid to go to school, pick up their kids. We have to carry our passport everywhere that we go.
And on Tuesday, another targeted action as the Department of Homeland Security announced the termination of Somalia for temporary protected status, with officials stating the country doesn't meet the conditions for designation. According to census data, there are nearly 100,000 Somali immigrants in the U.S., and more than 80% are naturalized U.S. citizens.
Everything in immigration is being weaponized by this administration. So when they say the temporary protected status is ending, it is obviously tragic for people that are under that, but the numbers are around 1,000, which is extremely small.
Both Warsami and Abdallah say this community will overcome these challenging times, standing in solidarity.
Telling the president, stop doing this, we human, we this, we that, is not going to change anything. What we're doing is, if the president wants to fight with the power, we are fighting with our rights, and we're not stopping, and we're helping our community.
And Portland police say that they are in regular communication with Somali community organizations and leaders, and so far haven't heard of any threats. They do encourage anyone with concerns to reach out. David?
Thanks, Alma. Appreciate the follow-up. Alma McCarty in the newsroom there. Well, meanwhile, Oregon lawmakers are pushing back on a new move by the president to withhold federal funding from states that do not assist with federal immigration efforts. One proposal withholding state payments to the federal government under specific circumstances, meaning if the feds refuse to release funds even after Oregon won in court. The bill is set to be introduced by Democrats when the short session begins next month, though there is already Republican opposition. To get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now, we have just learned this evening that authorities have arrested 2 juveniles for the murder of a convenience store worker in southeast Portland. Santi Ram Rai was killed in December at 3D's Market in the Hazelwood neighborhood. Today, police arrested a 12 and 15-year-old boy in Vancouver. Both are now charged with second-degree murder and robbery. In Washington County, a former Banks High School teacher will serve more than 6 years in prison after pleading guilty to sex abuse. Prosecutors say 67-year-old Wyman Wayne Smith abused 2 students last year, initiating inappropriate relationships that escalated to sexual contact. Smith must register as a sex offender and has permanently lost his teaching certification. And authorities are investigating a burglary at the North Carolina home of NASCAR legend Greg Biffle just weeks after he and his family were killed in a plane crash. Deputies say thieves stole $30,000 in cash, firearms, and memorabilia. No arrests have been made. Biffle, who grew up in Clark County, died in December along with his wife, children, and 3 others when their plane crashed near Charlotte while attempting to land. To new information tonight on a case we've been following for the past year with a Salem man sentenced to life in prison for killing his ex-partner. Their crime was discovered after 40-year-old Tyler Holman got into a crash in Polk County in January. As he was being taken to the hospital, authorities say a tow truck driver found the body of his ex wrapped in plastic, which had been flung from the car during the crash. Investigators later learned 34-year-old Ashley Gandolfi had died from a gunshot wound to the head. Her mother was among those who spoke in court today.
Our outlook on life has changed drastically since Ashley's murder. I've lost my love of gardening. all my hobbies, my smile, and a big piece of my heart. Each morning I wake up to the awful reality that Ashley is gone, and I relive the shock and pain all over every day.
As part of a plea deal, Holman admitted to second-degree murder and will be eligible for parole after 25 years. Tonight, Portland City Council has a new president, though after some dramatic deadlock, multiple meetings, and 13 rounds of votes, it turns out the winner didn't even want the job. Blair Best explains.
Deadlock.
This is going to keep going.
After deadlock.
This is just profoundly unserious at this point.
After deadlock. 13 rounds of voting over 3 meetings. A divided Portland City Council painfully struggled to agree on who should lead as council president.
We are in a crisis. This is a crisis of leadership.
Insults flew.
Last week, Councilor Maria leveled one of the most grievous insults anybody can level against anybody, against me and Councilor Clark.
And emotions took over.
I feel emotional hearing that because I actually feel really hurt, Councilor Novick, that you haven't said a single word to me or asked how I'm doing in the last couple of days, too.
The candidates, Councilors Ilana Pertolgini, Samir Kanal, Loretta Smith, and Steve Novick. And in a last-minute nomination, Councilor Jamie Dunphy.
Well, I'm going to nominate Councilor Jamie Dunphy from District 1.
He reluctantly accepted.
This is not something that I have been seeking and is not something I am excited about.
Just before 1:30 Wednesday afternoon, Council elected Dunphy as the new president. He received 9 votes.
I'm willing, not happy, but willing to do this in service of this institution.
Council president duties include running council meetings, setting the agenda, and the seating chart.
I will use this role to distribute power, not consolidate it, to build systems that treat each of us the same and protect this council as an equitable body for our colleagues and our constituents. I really don't want this to be a yearly ritual of hardened battle lines. This has hurt my heart.
At one point Wednesday, Councilor Smith threatened to sue the city over the ongoing stalemate, arguing the mayor should be the tie-breaking vote.
I would like to ask that we get a declaratory judgment from a judge to view our charter.
Turning to sue the city over this is just, it's very disappointing.
Portlanders are watching us, and they deserve better than a council that appears unwilling or unable to make decisions about its own leadership.
Blair Best reporting there. Meanwhile, Councilor Olivia Clark of District 4 was elected as vice president.